Good afternoon, everyone. This is our Wednesday, June 14th, regular Board of County Commissioners meeting. And let's see, John P., any additions or deletions today?
There are no additions or deletions to the agenda.
Mike's not on.
I turned out. So there are no additions or deletions to the agenda. I would note that I will be taking the item on the bylaws changes for Charlotte today.
Okay. Great. Okay, anybody here today wishing to make any public comments? It's just 12 o'clock. I'm a second ahead of myself here.
I know, George, I'm impressed.
Or the clock's slow. Or the alarm.
Well, we'll close the public comment then and bring it back to commissioner comments. Patty?
I just want to thank the county for having the employee appreciation picnic yesterday. It was great fun. We had a great turnout. We had it right out here in the park. We opened all these doors and this window up. It was a great day for it, and it was great to have the opportunity to express our appreciation of Pickens County employees. So thank you for helping organize that. I also want to remind people about the high water. Please be careful. Only experts on the river right now. The river is going to be coming up more with more releases coming over from the top of the Roaring Forks. So please be careful out there and enjoy this weekend of food and wine. Also, don't drive into town. It's crazy, and walking is crazy, so please be careful there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Steve?
The commissioners had an opportunity yesterday to have a tour of the construction project over here, which we had been able to look down through the chain link fence into the basement and the foundation of the new Sheriff's and Public Safety building, which is actually where our new meeting room will be. But then we also had the opportunity to go into the plaza building, to all the floors of it, and all the interior walls are knocked out, and it's really a bizarre feeling in there right now with seeing it without any of the walls in there, and even the pillar that used to stand in the middle of our commissioner's room is still standing there. It will still remain there, but it's just out in the middle of a great big empty room right now. So it was very interesting to see the progress, and they're pouring quite a bit of concrete now, and I think it's all on schedule.
Great, thanks. If that pillar were to go, the whole building would probably go.
It wouldn't be good.
Anybody else? Greg?
Just a quick one. On the way into town, my wife told me she'd heard that CDOT has 2 days this summer that they can fix potholes on I believe it's Castle Creek Bridge and S-curves, and those are the 26th and 27th. And apparently that's caused a lot of uproar with the Aspen Institute and all these other groups that are going to be full-on summer craziness. And I know they're just wondering if that was on anyone's radar, if you received any calls. So my first notification came through my wife, but she's tuned into that sort of thing. And I'm just wondering, apparently there are calls to the governor to try to get CDOT to change its plan.
Brian, can you have any information on that?
Yeah, I asked about that yesterday for the EOTC meeting.
Come on, I wasn't. Sorry, I wasn't.
There is work going to be done the 26th and 27th.
Yeah.
The scope of the project, I don't know yet. I'm going to find out today, and we'll make a presentation to the EOTC tomorrow.
Okay,
Between 4 and 6 in Snowmass Village, and we'll know more then. I had not heard that the governor had been called on this issue.
That's how excited everyone is about this.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
great.
wait a
Thank
minute.
you. Yeah.
Isn't that also the date of that race that's coming, that bike race that we were concerned about them going through the S-curves? Isn't that race?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Isn't that the same time frame?
I will, let me look into that. I'll make sure it's not.
Let's just cram it
I
all
will
in
make sure
2
it's not.
days.
I think CDOT's aware of that, and this is being done before that race, but I will make sure of that.
Yeah, good
Perfect.
thinking.
So they just have hot tar to ride over, not potholes.
All right, great. Thanks, Greg.
Sure.
Rachel?
Well, going into the summer, we all know the food and wine is the real kickoff, and the town is getting busier. As Patty said, if you can walk carefully with folks who may not acknowledge the pedestrian right-of-way, and to use transit, because parking is going to be extremely tight, and you'll just frustrate yourself. I'd like to hope everyone is safe, especially if they're getting back on the road and taking consideration of that. What I would like to particularly ask the public or remind the public is that currently the United States Senate, with a group of 10 senators, is deciding the fate of the health care bill to bring it back to Congress for reconciliation with the congressional health care bill. We have already written to Senator Gardner to ask him to protect the many values there, particularly Medicaid patients, which we have a significant number in Pickens County, and to not see that become a block grant system, which would limit states' ability to actually care for those lower income people and seniors. And a lot of folks don't realize, but Medicaid is one of the only programs that helps seniors in their final stages of life with nursing home care. And this is important, and so I would just encourage people to call Senator Gardner's office. He is one of the 10 senators working on the final program, and let them know your thoughts about the health care bill and what you would like to see go forward. So I think that's the most important thing that we can do. Participation counts. The kind of report I've read in the paper is that, well, the senators aren't hearing much from anybody. No one's phones are ringing off the hook. And there is, at least currently, the plan seems to be to vote on it without public disclosure or public debate of the bill or debate among the Senate. And so, again, I think it's very important to express whatever feelings you have, support or opposition, to Senator Gardner's office and let him know. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Okay, let's see. We're going to move on to our consent items. These are single readings. I think I'll just take these one at a time. The minutes of the regular meeting of May 24th.
And as the board will see, there's a correction that Jeanette passed out on one of the items. So
I was not there.
Rachel was not there, so we know Rachel was not. Yeah.
Appreciate
So we're good. So I'll make a motion to approve
With the correction.
with the correction.
Okay.
Second?
Second, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next is appointing the hearing officers for the 2017 appeals of the Assessors Valuation and approving a list of arbitrators.
Red light's
Can
on.
you hear me now?
Red light on?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Jeanette Jones, clerk to the board. What you have before you today is appointment of hearing officers for the 2017 valuation appeals. These are appeals of the assessor's valuation, and it's one of the appeal processes that we will be handling this summer. And I'd like to introduce our clerk for this year that is helping us out with this process, Julia Ely. She shook her head and
Hi, Julia.
didn't want to come up, but I
Okay.
wanted to acknowledge her and let you know that she will be helping out. We're expecting a busy year, and so we're very happy to have her here with us. And also, Larry Fide is here. If you have any questions, or maybe he'd like to give a brief overview of the process.
Well, I think
Get
it
a little
will,
closer to your mic.
I think it will be a standard appeal process from the standpoint that when somebody files to the County Board of Equalization, the hearing officers will hear both the taxpayer's presentation and the assessor's office presentation, and then they will make a determination as to whether or not the property owner should get any relief or an adjustment, or if they should uphold the assessor's value. So the process itself, I think, will be pretty much the same as it has been in years past. Our volume is a little bit up this year. We ended up with right at 1,600 appeals, which is plus or minus about 10% of the total number of real property accounts. Which is about typical from years past. The last several valuation cycles, we've been hovering around, 1,000 to 1,200 appeals, so a little bit more. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's out of line with historically what we've seen in the office.
Rachel?
Yeah, thanks for that overview. And can you also talk about deadlines for appeal and what the process is if you should disagree with the hearing officer's determinations?
Sure. The first round of appeal is to the assessor's office, and we are working through those appeals now. The deadline for us to send a notice of determination to the taxpayers is June 30th. We're trying to send them out in batches so that the clerk doesn't get buried, with the appeals once they come back. So those notices they're going out now, and they will be finalized by June 30th. If somebody is not happy with the outcome of their appeal to the assessor's level, they have 2 weeks, I think, until July 15th to file to the next round, which is the County Board of Equalization. Those hearings will be heard through August 5th. And then if somebody is still interested in appealing beyond that, they can appeal to either binding arbitration on a local level, district court, which seldom, if ever, anybody really chooses, or at the state level, the State Board of Assessment Appeals. Those have to be filed within, I think, 30 days of the notice that they receive from the County Board of Equalization.
Sometimes we receive packets of appeals where someone is appealing a much prior year. How far back can people appeal for readjustment?
I think what you're referring to is a petition for an abatement.
Okay, yes.
Which is a request for a refund for prior years, and you can file up to 2 years back from the year in question. So being in 2017, they can file up abatements for tax years 2015 and 16 at this point.
Thank you. And this year, there was some legislation passed with the assistance of Colorado Counties, Inc. that changed the rate of interest that folks would receive if it was a multiple year, past year abatement redetermination. And in the past, it was 12% interest. And there were some communities that may have been fought in legal battles about whether the abasement should happen or not. And then when they lost 12% interest on $1 million, with an oil and gas pipeline company or something, could be very significant. And that has now been limited in terms of when you have to have filed to be able to receive the abatement and things like that. So please take a look at that if you haven't seen it before. It was, I think, set in statute as an interest rate back in the 80s when interest rates were so very high, and they're certainly not now, and it was felt to be undue burden on the taxpayers who are paying the rest of the taxes.
I think in reference to that, the way it used to be, if you received an adjustment for tax year 2015, the interest clock ran all the way from 2015 up to the date, up to the current date that the refund was issued. And I think the legislation that you're talking about resets the clock. So now the interest clock only starts
when you file,
when the appeal is filed, and so it does limits the exposure as far as interest to the counties, by quite a bit.
There was a real sense that there was a certain amount of gaming of the system to be able to wait till the last day to file, so that you would have a 2-year window of interest.
24 months of interest. Right?
Yeah, thank you.
Larry, I noticed for the qualified arbitrators, we have Daisy Christensen, who's out of Lakewood. Is that a little unusual that we have someone that's not lives within the valley, familiar with the real estate market up here? Or Jeanette?
Well, I talked to her about that, and she said that she had appraised some properties here or been involved in appraisals here, but it's just a list, and it's up to the taxpayer if they want to choose her, or it's up to you to begin with to either add her to the list or not. Out of a courtesy, I added her for your consideration.
Yeah, I would be a little concerned. I mean, we have a very unique real estate market here, and even if someone has done just a few appraisals here, I think the other The other hearing officers and qualified arbitrators, certainly arbitrators, are all long-time designated licensed appraisers here in the Roaring Fork Valley, certainly up in Pickens County. And I would be more comfortable just, if we don't need an additional fourth person, keeping it to the local experienced people. That would be my suggestion.
Do we need a motion then to change the resolution and delete that name?
Just a motion to approve the resolution.
Can I ask, do we need that extra person? Are we going to have the need for more people because of the volume we're having this year? I don't want to overburden the rest of them, where maybe then they're too stressed to be taking the time they need to do the arbitration.
4 is sufficient.
And I'm asking, so if they remove the one name, they'll still have 4? I would think that would be
I
sufficient.
mean, okay, then I'm
4 is
comfortable
sufficient.
removing her name from the list. George, thanks for your concerns.
Well, you actually have 4 hearing officers, and right now you have Betsy, Kim, and Dave, and Daisy. So you'd have 4
So only have 3
arbitrators. So we do not accept Daisy, then we'd have just 3 arbitrators.
I think 3 would be sufficient.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to approve with the elimination of Daisy Christensen from the list.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 And just explain why in terms of the comfort level. And we have enough experienced local arbitrators here, licensed and designated as well. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you.
Was that it for you, Jeanette, or?
I'll be back in a minute.
You'll be back in a minute.
John.
Okay, so next is a resolution to amend the Pickens County Library Citizen Board and Senior Services Council bylaws. And John, you're going to handle this?
Yeah, and I'll do this quickly. There are 2 changes, or 2 bylaws changes to the 2 different boards. They're rather simple changes, but very important ones. On the library board, in the course of doing interviews, the board requested that the library consider adding alternates to the library board, and so the bylaw changes that are proposed allow for the appointment of up to 2 alternate positions on the library board. Those alternate positions would have the same attendance requirements as regular board members, and in terms of voting, if there is an absent regular board member, one of the alternates would serve for the, whatever the full term of that meeting is as a voting member. And then at the next meeting where there's an absence, the other alternate would serve as that voting board member. So that's the first proposed change. That's a result of the request from the Board of County Commissioners during the interview process. On the senior bylaws, the change really had to do with a governance item that the bylaws as originally written had the senior council being the final approver of their own bylaws changes versus the Board of County Commissioners. And they have graciously revised those to include the Board of County Commissioners as the final approver, which is consistent with other boards' bylaws. So those are the changes that are in front of you.
So I have one question. I don't know if it's typical or not typical, but for alternates that we use for other boards that we serve on, there typically is not an attendance requirement. It's the case that they're able to fill the seat and staff make sure there's an established quorum and vote if the standing member is not able to attend.
Yeah, and I think what they're trying to anticipate with the library board is if they're voting on an item that has been a matter of discussion or consideration over several meetings, putting an alternate in that voting seat just to fill that absence. And what we find as a practical matter is that alternate members are typically pretty motivated and want to participate anyway. That's why they signed up for the alternate seat. So it's really, I think, just anticipating that if they are going to fill a voting role, that they would have participated in policy decision or discussions at least and presentations leading up to those
Okay,
decisions.
great. Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve to amend the Pickens County Library Citizens Board and Senior Services Council bylaws.
Second.
And are you here for this item?
No, they're
okay.
here for the next. We're just gearing up.
All right, okay, so we have a motion and a second.
Question.
Yes,
Patty, were you here for this item?
Just for
And-
questions, yeah.
And did you have anything you wanted to add?
You have to come to a microphone if you're going to have a conversation.
no, okay. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, next we're going to move on to, these are individual consideration items. It's public hearings, and these are one readings. And the first is an application for a special event liquor license submitted by the Buddy Program.
Okay. Jeanette Jones, clerk to the board, and the Liquor Licensing Authority, which is you all. And what you have before you today is an application submitted by the Buddy Program for their annual event up at, it's called the Merry-Go-Ranch. And I have with me Maddie and Megan, and as I typically do, I'm going to allow them the opportunity to talk about their event to you and members of the public.
Great, thank you, and welcome.
Thank you. Hi, thank you. I'm Megan Perlman, the Development Director with the Buddy Program, and this is Maddie Hawken, the Business Manager with the Buddy Program. So we are planning our 18th annual Bash for the Buddies, and it's on Thursday, July 6th. And it's generously hosted by Lenny Boogie Wineglass at his home on McLean Flats, Merry-Go-Ranch. This is an annual event, and it's the biggest fundraiser of the year for the Buddy Program. We hope to have about 500 people join us at this party, and people can learn more about it at buddyprogram.org. It's typically 6 to 11-ish midnight. The party's really fun, and the theme this year is Rockstar. And our guests are encouraged to come dressed, inspired by their inner rock star, and it can be anyone from any decade. There's no specific decade that we're asking them to join us for. This event is really fun. We have a full slate of activities. It starts at 6 p.m. with a silent auction, and then we move into the dinner tent, and we have sit-down dinner, a live auction and program where we are very privileged to share more about the work we are doing in our community. This is the biggest fundraiser for the Buddy Program again, and it's because we raise a good portion of our operating budget this night, so it's very important to us. And we serve over 575 youth from Aspen to Carbondale. We work with 10 different schools between Aspen and Carbondale. And this event really enables us to keep our programs and services free to all the youth that participate. Without this event, we would not be able to do so. So we are very grateful to the community members who come out and support us.
Good, thank you. Any questions?
Yeah.
Patty?
I've never noticed this in the past, and when I first read it, in the agenda item summary, the time is 6 p.m. to 11:59 p.m. And then I realized if we put 12 o'clock, we'd be kicking it into the next day, so you'd have to have a 2-day permit. So
Right.
I'm like, why did they put? So it took me a while.
I don't think it's ever gone that late.
I
either.
know. 59. You're out of here. 11:59. So, are the liquor sales going to go? Isn't there a cutoff time? We usually have a cutoff time, like you can serve the
An
last
hour.
hour. Is it an hour?
Yeah, an hour prior to the end of the event.
Perfect. Okay, I think this is a great event, and I'm excited for you guys to be having it again.
This is a public hearing. Anybody wishing to make a comment on this? Seeing none, I'll keep the public hearing open for the next item as well.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. 2 seconds.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, great, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
ladies.
so much.
Good
How
luck.
do people get tickets if they haven't already purchased them?
They can get it at buddyprogram.org.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Get your license.
Okay, the next event is an application for a special event liquor license for the Wilderness Workshop.
Okay. I believe we have Joey Stokes here. There he is.
Hello.
Okay, this is another annual event for the Wilderness Workshop, for an event to be held from 4 o'clock to 11:59 p.m. At 1289 Woody Creek Road. And I failed to mention that Mike Kramer is also here if you have any questions on the special event permit that's issued through Community Development. And as I did with our previous applicants, I'll let Joey give you an overview of the event.
Great, thanks. So yeah, this is the third year that we've produced Wildfest. This is the second year that it's going to be at Owl Farm. We sold out last year at about 550 people, which was awesome. And primarily the event serves as an opportunity for Wilderness Workshop to connect with people that already know about the organization and bring a lot of new people into the fold and generate new membership. And it's also a bit of a fundraiser for them as well. We will have interactive art spaces, there's educational spaces, music from the Rail Splitters, which is a great bluegrass and kind of folk band from Boulder, and the World's Finest, which is another, they're from Oregon, and they're kind of like a rock funk band, pretty cool. And yeah, happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Great, thank you.
Where can people get tickets?
Wildernessworkshop.org is all the info and tickets.
And again, you will be cutting off the service of liquor an hour before.
We're actually going to go.
At 10:59.
We're going to stop a little bit earlier. We're going to be ending at about 10:30.
Perfect.
We'll stop liquor service a bit before that.
Rachel?
Yeah, certainly didn't hear of any issues or anything last year, and so very hopeful to see this go forward. But I'm wondering, what is the kind of transportation management and parking management program for that?
Yeah, so we do have limited parking, but the community school, which is right next door, has, like they did last year, given us the opportunity to park cars up there. But we do encourage people to carpool. We also have some parking on site. And that worked out really well for us last year. There's shuttles from the community school to the actual venue. We'll also have tipsy taxi vouchers and hired security to kind of help facilitate that at the end of the night. But it's not really a big drinking event. It's kind of more like family oriented, and we ended early. But yeah, didn't have any
just
issues
knowing
with that
that's
last year.
a narrow, winding road.
Yeah.
So thank you
for sure.
for consideration to that, and perhaps additional heads up to the folks who've bought tickets.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Steve?
Yeah, I volunteer every year at Wilderness Workshop events, and as you see, I'm going to be on the green team, and I'm getting warmed up already with my green shirt today.
Nice.
First question, do you still need volunteers? I know I've gotten a couple email blasts that
Yeah,
looking
definitely.
for volunteers.
Yep, we are looking for volunteers if you'd like to volunteer for a ticket. And some of those jobs entail things like assistance with parking, as well as green team and things like that. And that information is all on Wilderness Workshop's website as well. So thanks for asking.
Yeah, and I'll just put in a word that the shuttle system has worked very well last year, as I recall. I didn't see any problems whatsoever, and it's very convenient and timely kind of a thing.
Cool. And we only had one shuttle last year, and this year we'll have two that are going to be going back and forth, so it should be even smoother.
Great. Very good.
Is this a public hearing? Anybody wish to make any comments on this application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Bring it back to the board. Steve?
Did we have a motion yet?
No.
Okay, I would move to approve the application for a special event liquor license for Wilderness Workshop.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great event.
It's a fun party.
Okay, we're going to move on to our first reading. This is set for public hearing on June 28th. This is a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Aspen for Buttermilk Parking Management Plan.
Correct. Hi, I'm Brian Pettit. I'm the Public Works Director.
I'm Mitch Ozier, the Director of Parking and Downtown Services for the City of Aspen.
The board has looked at this issue a couple times in work sessions, but Given this regular meeting, I'll just give an overview of what this is about. This is 23 acres that was condemned in the expansion of Highway 82 by the state of Colorado and Pickens County for the purposes of transportation and infrastructure. Since that time, the state has transferred ownership fully to Pickens County, as was required in the condemnation. And the lots, there's about 347 spaces, and the lot closest to Highway 82 was recently repaved and or actually sealed and striped, so I haven't had a chance to make sure they've reestablished all those places, but that's pretty close. And just to orient people on this map that I have on the board here, Highway 82 is right here. This is the intersection with Owl Creek Road, and the lots are A, B, C, and D. And that's what we're talking about today. The lots are really fully used during the winter time by skiers and transit users. But during the summer season, between April and November, they are not used that much for legitimate purposes. They are fairly abused by unpermitted uses right now, and we are struggling with enforcement. So this plan in front of the board today, Mitch and I have been working on for about a year now, and we're hoping to serve the community's needs for additional parking for cars and also address the community's needs for commercial and construction staging. So I'll just go over what the plan is all about at this time, which is in the Lot A, this would be continued use for transit users. And this would be 50 spaces, and RAFTA feels like 50 spaces would completely service their needs right now. But if that lot were to ever exceed capacity for transit use, we would expand it. We never want to constrain transit parking during the day. Lot B would be used for paid parking and we would put 2 meters on either side of this parking area. There would be 96-hour parking at $6 a day. The last time we brought this in front of the board, we had $8 a day on there, and the feedback was that we felt that might have been too much, so we reduced it to $6 a day. We don't know exactly what the price point is for this parking lot, but this is a bit of an experiment for this season. Parking area C, back to B for a second. In working with community development on this, at that time, Jazz Aspen Snowmass was looking to possibly camp in the Buttermilk area, and they were interested in parking here. And so it came to light that this lot could be used for special event parking. And so at that time, we put a provision in there that up to 60 or 70% of this parking area could be pre-purchased by a special event for their event for up to 96 hours at a time. And the reason the 96 hours came to light was really people tend to come here on a Friday and leave on a Monday, and we didn't want to constrain people on either end. And the Jazz Aspen Snowmass event also would have needed those a 4-day parking duration as well. Parking area C would be the construction and commercial staging area, and this would be done with a permit through the city of Aspen. And this is on a 5-day basis, and depending on how many spaces people use, we would adjust that rate accordingly. As you can see, the 174 spaces, we are gauging a 4-space minimum. And that's about what people need to park a tractor trailer. If you look out there right now, Food and Wine is taking up a bit of this parking area with their tractor trailers. So in this case, they would have paid for those spaces. Right now, they're not. Parking area D would be preserved for people accessing Sky Mountain Park, and it would be day-use parking only. The IGA that's in front of you is really an agreement with the city of Aspen to transfer enforcement of this lot. And so between the months of April and November, we would manage these lots as I've just laid out, and the city of Aspen, through Mitch's department, would provide the enforcement and management based on this agreement. As I said, this is an experiment. We don't know how this is going to work for sure. We think it will be successful. There is interest in the community for these parking areas at the rates that we've laid out. Along that, go ahead, Mitch.
Just to give you a little idea for Area B, I have about 2 or 3 requests a day at the moment for people wanting to park in Area B and pay for it in the parking office in Aspen. And we certainly believe that Area C is really important for Pickens County and for Aspen. There is no place really to have staging of vehicles or of construction, and it's important because people are asking every day. And I think we need to give them a place to do it since there's such a high request.
So with that, we did, the last time we met with the board, there was concern of conformance of this plan with the West of Maroon planning document. So the board directed staff to meet with the P&Z. We did that. They were generally in favor of seeing this parking change. They did want to revisit it after this initial year to see how it worked out. And if it's going to continue in the future, that they would like to put an amendment into the WOMP for that purpose. But that's what staff would do. The IGA, however, just lays out with the city the enforcement provision as we've discussed here.
So let me ask you, Brian, the plan, as you said, will go into effect for April to November. In the wintertime, do we have any monitoring to ensure that the recreational skiers are not utilizing the transit parking in Lot A?
We do as best we can. I mean, we don't have anybody assigned to monitoring this lot. Right. So we, as public works staff, if we see a car out there with continually with a lot of snow on it, we know there's a violation and we'll address it. But we just don't have a lot of capacity right now for enforcement.
Yeah, I mean, one of the opportunities that we're going to see actually come before us tomorrow, the ELTC, is the Upper Valley Mobility Study. And they're going to be looking at a wide variety of different transit options to relieve the congestion coming into Aspen. And one is, in the past, it's really been this lot, Buttermilk Lot, has been underutilized for transit, and specifically to help capture residents and visitors coming down from Snowmass that are utilizing the Owl Creek corridor, then to park and be able to utilize RAFTA to go in and out of town. So I just, it's an experiment, but as we move forward, I think we want to try to encourage the usage of this lot as an intercept lot, similar to the Brush Creek intercept lot. And so not only during April and November, but also in the winter months as well.
Yes. I think what I've seen in Lot B specifically is that's primarily used for the Highland Shuttle. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people are parked there in the wintertime, get on the Highland Shuttle and commute to Highlands.
Right. Okay. Rachel, you're in.
Yeah, thank you. And I believe I was at another meeting when this was more discussed. I've heard about it initially. So I do have a few questions. And one is, is there any special provisions that perhaps the city of Aspen is making with RAFTA to be able to have a shuttle here for the 4th of July events? I mean, we know how bad the traffic gets in the 4th of July, and, it just seems like it would be such a great location to be able to shuttle people in and out for who've stayed to watch the fireworks or who are trying to get in town for the parade and things like that, with the bus getting through the HOV lane instead of being backed out past the Airport Business Center and things like that.
Certainly something we would look at for 2018.
Yeah.
We've sort of stayed away from letting people use that parking lot until we decide how to move forward with the IGA, because it's not our parking lot. It's Pickens County's parking lot. So, I mean, I request every day in the parking office to use this lot in one fashion or another, and it's not my jurisdiction, so I stay away from it.
Right.
But part of the goal, and the reason why I've got Aspen excited about doing this, is that it is underutilized and there's lots of opportunities. As George said, I mean, running ads in Snowmass that says, as you come down Owl Creek, park here for free and take the bus in would be great. I just did a study of people parking in town, and Snowmass was our second largest number of people that park in the downtown core of Aspen. With the city of Aspen, people live in Aspen, number one, Snowmass, number two, Basalt, a distant number three. So anyway, yeah, so to use this in the future for big events.
Well,
Even
I'm
food
just
and wine
wondering,
would be work.
You know, we have a little more time before the 4th, and the real issue would be making sure RAFTA can provide that sort of shuttle service. Now, I know they've, you know, sometimes, you know, all sorts of different measures have been taken, but used even the pedestrian right-of-way out is at Hopkins to get the buses out during the 4th of July. And, you know, we have a regular meeting coming up on the 28th. So if we were able to make some sort of agreement or something to use that, I just think you really could relieve a lot of the 4th of July traffic. And if RAFTA, you know, can gear up to have some extra drivers on and provide efficient shuttle service, I would really encourage the city to look at that. It could really make for a good event.
That parking lot is full on 4th of July.
Is it?
People already use that parking lot for 4th of July. So it is already full, and they jump on the RAFTA bus, which are packed, because people realize when they get there that there's no parking in town.
Yeah, but again, it's kind of, what is the shuttle service to and from? And
it's the regular, but I don't think RAFTA has the funds to increase, but it's worth asking.
Well,
George
the
might
city
know.
could consider contributing for extra service. I'm just saying, let's
Yeah,
see more what
absolutely.
we can do. And I agree with you. A lot of people use it. Okay, the other
It's full.
questions I have are, you know, if it's the 96-hour parking, what type of signage is going to be put up? I mean, it needs to say things like no fire pits. You're going to have a lot of RVs, and so you're really inviting overnight camping in that lot at X many dollars. And I'm not saying that's a good thing or bad thing, but I think it requires a lot more policing. There's a lot more opportunity for garbage to be left behind. It just takes one bad actor to empty their tank, and the parking lot will be really pretty ruined. But, you know, when you do that sort of camping, and again, it's fun for people, but you'll have outdoor barbecues, you know, people cooking on site. You know, you're going to have to really be very careful about what the rules are. You know, you take those kind of metal fire pits that they sell at Home Depot, and you have a little fire to sit around with your camp chairs. So I think you'll really have to think about that aspect. Is it something you want to encourage someone just to leave their car there and be at a hotel in town, or is this going to become the new lodging in Aspen, or workforce housing for that matter? So I think a lot of thought has to go into that. And then, as you mentioned briefly, that jazz festival request, I don't know if that's come forward more formally. That was just a work session discussion we had with them. But there needs to be something that would let people know that that's not going to be available for Jazz Fest weekend, if it's going to be preoccupied at that time. And then the last thing is, I really would like to make sure that we're fully covered on liability issues. I wouldn't want it to be that, you know, my truck got dinged because you allowed this extra big construction vehicle in here, and, you know, I'm just kind of wondering how do we manage the liability issues of any sort, you know, again, even if it's just hectic and someone's worried about their dog or child getting hit between the 3 different lots with construction vehicles coming in and out. I think no idling has got to be very clearly put out there on all the signs. You know, sometimes you see dump trucks warming up for 20 minutes and a lot of fumes. And so, you know, I think what is on the signage is going to be really important, and that it's prominent and that it's enforceable. And then just the memo you handed out, Brian, under parking area C, it says $40 per day up to 4 parking spaces, and you use the term a minimum of 4 parking spaces. So that needs to be changed for second reading.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Who was up, Steve, then Greg?
Yeah, speaking to the issue on the 4th of July, not only is the parking lot full, but the RAFTA buses are packed before they get to Buttermilk.
Yeah.
And oftentimes they have to just drive by and leave the people there. So maybe we should talk to RAFTA and see if they could add an extra bus that maybe it doesn't go clear to Brush Creek or something. Just add extra buses on, because the people there look very frustrated when they get left behind trying to park at Buttermilk and then they don't get on the bus.
Well, and just to tag in on that, that's the issue we ran into X Games a number of years ago, where people were frustrated there was no bus, and then they'd start walking down Highway 82 and crossing the bridge there. And so I think it wouldn't come out of RAFTA's regular budget. It would be something that, again, the city would have to work with some shuttles that just turn around there and get people right back out to their car at the end of the day.
Well, let me just interject. It could be, if we have time, it could be a discussion point for the LTC, because that's frankly where I think the funding would come from to support that.
Okay.
Interesting. Next question has to do with how much would the city parking department actually be on the scene there? Would you just go by a couple of times a day with a person to check things out, or would there be somebody there kind of all the time, or what?
No, the plan was to manage that lot 3 times a day. So we would manage it about 8 to 8:30 in the morning, every morning, Monday through Friday. We would manage it at about 11:30 to 12:30 in the afternoon, and then at about 5 o'clock in the evening.
Okay.
Can I just, is that your same times you usually do the intercept lot?
It is tied into doing the intercept lot, correct?
Okay.
Make that loop.
And then, since the earliest we could begin this would be June 28th or June 29th, because that's when we have our second reading on this, a chunk of the summer has already gone by, and looking at the fees, there's only one season-long thing, which is the $3,500 for the summer season. Would you be prorating that for this summer? Because they could park there for free now, I guess, and maybe are already, but it would seem fair to not charge them the full $3,500 for just part of the summer.
That's right, we would do that.
But this is more than summer. This goes all the way to November.
December 10th.
Yeah, so if they miss a week or two, I don't see prorating it. This is
Yeah.
It's an additional 4 months. So
It should be defined differently in the memo.
Or another way to put it, if someone came in August and wanted to do that for the remainder of the season, would they get a prorated rate for August through November? Because they're only using it for half of the season.
No, they have a monthly rate that
There's a
would go
monthly
off.
rate.
You'd just have them do the monthly thing?
Correct. That would be my plan, would be to just charge the $550 per month for how minutes they wanted.
Okay, so that really is prorated, doing the monthly fee. Yeah. Okay, that's all.
Just, can I clarify one thing? From a timing standpoint, we do need to put signage in, and we do need to put the meters in. So there is some work that needs to be done before we can start really implementing it.
Plus, this has to be approved by the Aspen City Council in addition, and I haven't done that till we got your approval first.
Okay.
I've already talked to everybody, and everybody's on board, so we're not anticipating an issue, but we do have to go through Aspen, which is going to take another couple weeks. But I was waiting for today before I made the next move with the city of Aspen.
Okay. John, did you want to clarify something on this?
Well, I just wanted to add in, and Brian already alluded to this, but a lot of concerns have been raised about the potential implementation of this, and I think those are all fair concerns. And what was proposed by the Planning Commission is really, let's try this out for a year and come back and have an evaluation. And so, I think while not necessarily part of the IGA, I think it'd be important for the board to give staff direction to do that review, bring that information back to both the Planning Commission and this body before the next year of the agreement goes into effect. Yep. And so that way we can evaluate what did really happen on site and what did we see.
Mm-hmm. And Mitch, would you carry that over to City Council too, that we'll be doing that from there? They would have the opportunity to review it in a year also.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Greg.
Yeah, I think it sounds great. Couple questions. Regarding, if I'm coming up Valley, I've lived down in Brush Creek, if I come up, I'll often park in there. And I've used the transit parking a couple times. I've parked and gone for a bicycle ride either into town or the Maroon Bells or something from there. It's just an easier way to get me past Shale Bluffs. So I know a lot of different uses are coming in there. what I'm thinking is your incentive. The first thing I would do if I were to pull in there is to see if there's any free parking, right? So that's going to fill up. How are you going to enforce the transit users? How do you know if they're actually using transit? Does it matter if they're going for a bike ride or if they're going to work? And then for the paid parking, my next question was, it sounds like you can park for about $7 a day in the outlying areas in Aspen.
$8.
Is it 8 now? Okay, the parking garages, I think I spend about $9 when I come in. If I have to come to a meeting, and the entire afternoon's about $9. What's the day rate for the parking?
Well, $1.50 an hour, and you can buy a punch pass for $5 a day.
I'm just wondering, is the incentive strong enough? Because the whole idea is to get people off the road as soon as we can before they come in across the bridge. Is the incentive going to be strong enough to get people to pull off there? And if so, how are we going to inform them? Can we have any sort of communication that says town's full, better park here? I hate the idea of more amber alert signs, but I'm just wondering, how can we get people off the highway sooner as they're coming into town? And is this a strong enough incentive? We'll find out, I guess.
Yeah, I can tell you from the feedback that we've gotten, I don't think you're going to have any trouble filling the B area. There's a number of people that want to use it. Some you may not like, some you may. There's a bunch of rafting companies that are using it now that want to continue to use it. I have other people that have run businesses that's where they want to, actually pick people up and drop them off, which I think is great because they're going to have to pay $6 to park there. So, like I said, the feedback we've received so far in the office is, I think we'll be here next year raising the price. Okay. Saying that $6 is filling it pretty quickly on busy days.
So can I just jump in on that? So Mitch, what you just said is right now rafting companies are currently using that, but wouldn't they need to be moved into parking area C and not utilize parking area B?
That's correct. That would be the commercial construction staging. And these commercial uses are, again, they're occurring right now, but I think Lot B is intended for autos and vehicle parking.
Yeah, so there's going to be a bit of a learning curve on this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Greg, did you have something
I think that's fine. Just so if the rafting clients are going to be parking in Lot B.
Right. So the rafting companies would be parking with the rafts in C, because they don't want to, in some cases, they don't want to come to town and pick them up because they waste a lot of time. So they're going to have either the, hotels bring them out to Buttermilk, or would have the guests say, park in B, pay $6, come over to C and jump on my vehicle, and we'll take you down Valley and go rafting.
Last question was, if A's full and I want to commute, can I use D and get away with it? Or if D's full and I want to ride my bike up, can I park in A and get away with it?
I think if we start seeing A fill up, we're going to move the line.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
Other questions? So it looks like you're asking for two decision points. One, does the board desire to change the way the parking areas of Buttermilk are managed? So, which has been this part of the discussion. Is the board comfortable with that?
Yeah.
And then next is, would the board rather hire a county employee to monitor and enforce parking regulations or utilize city?
I think we should utilize the city. They already have a full
City's
parking
driving by
department.
to go to the intercept line anyway. It's just a matter of swinging through.
Board, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
I'm in agreement with both those things, and I think one of the other things we may really need to evaluate is there going to be a need for additional screening of Lot C in the future in particular. There's times when you can drive by that and it just looks pretty messy and tacky. And again, I don't know about the other special events. It seemed like, was it the Art Museum had its big fundraiser and used the parking lot? So I think it's just a matter of making sure people realize there's times when they're not going to be able to park there, and that people anticipating using it, who are paying to use it, don't come and find they have to tow people away or something like that, whether it's Jazz Fest or that event. But, it may be something that we all need to look at, some potted trees or some permanent planters and create screening over time. Thank you.
We do have to remember it's a parking lot. It's like driving by the airport. We do have to remember they're airplanes. So
yeah, I know, but we have big, nice berms and flowers and wildflowers around our parking at the airport.
Have an irrigation
so I'm just
system
saying,
out there too.
we'll
There's a
have to take
cost
a
of
look
that
at
we need to be considering.
So
I think we all agree it'll be sort of work in progress as Brian and I learn where the line should be and how we're going to delineate those areas and, screening trees, what do we do? So,
Exactly.
again, we're excited in Aspen to be able, again, to manage something that is underutilized, that we all know if we start filling this, traffic will be easier coming into Aspen.
It's great.
And if we can save a minute or two coming from the airport, we're all happy with that.
So George, so my position is yes on one and actually no on the other. The second question, would we rather hire county, and no, I'd rather keep with the city. So it's a yes and a no.
Great.
So we have a second
means I'm
reading, we
neutral.
have a second reading on June 28th. Mitch, will you be able to get in front of city council prior to our second reading? Do you think?
I was waiting for this, so I will talk to Barry right after this and see when I can get on the next council meeting, which I don't think is until, I think it's the 27th, but I'll get on as soon as possible.
It's every 2
Or a
weeks.
work session,
Yeah.
Yeah, great, okay.
or a memo.
One last thing, just regarding priority, we brought up special events. If Art Museum or someone else wants to rent the whole thing for a special event, is that going to take priority over the long-term renter or that has to be worked out, I assume. I'm just wondering if somebody shows up to park and there's a circus tent there and he can't park, that may cause some grief. Is there a priority system?
So the answer is twofold. The area B would be the area that we would allow people to park for special events. If they want to use the commercial and construction staging, and that area is full, I'm not sure we can kick out someone that has a permit to be parking in there for the special event parking. But the special event parking that I was referring to were actually guests that were going to be attending that.
Okay.
And that special event could pre-rent out up to 70% of Lot B.
Okay.
But if we start having the kind of pressures you're speaking of, I think we need to reevaluate how we're managing that lot again. We'll see.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, but I know there's an interface here between the ski company's actual parking that they own and our parking? Or is this all county-owned parking?
All the parking lots we're referring to here are county-owned lots.
So the short-term and the term parking kind of there to the right closest to...
It's all ski company from that berm
And so I
over.
think that may be where the art museum had actually put their items up before.
Oh,
So
from there, okay.
Got it.
Yeah, that's where the carousel and all that stuff was.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
And second reading on, is it the 28th, June 28th?
28.
Correct.
Motion, second, any further discussion? Sounds like a great idea, thank you. All in
Yeah,
favor
see how
say
it
aye.
goes.
Work
Thank
on
you.
this.
Aye.
Thank you.
All
A
favor
work in
say-
progress.
We have, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Get through that. Okay, we're going on to our individual consideration items. This is public hearing. These are our second reading, so we've had some work sessions and first readings on some of these. First is a resolution authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with Eagle County for public health planning services.
Good afternoon. I'm Karen Kenneman, Public Health Director. And as George mentioned, this is the second reading and public hearing for the IGA between Eagle County and Pitkin County for public health services. And this is just an opportunity for us to provide continued planning services for Eagle County Public Health to ensure that they're doing their community health improvement plan in conjunction with the work that we've been doing with them regionally.
Questions, Patty?
Are there any changes from the first reading?
There are no changes
Thank
from the
you.
first reading.
And one other question, would you please clarify for me the committee that I just got myself appointed to? So I can let the board know, because I can't remember what it is.
Was it the Healthcare Coalition Committee?
Yes.
Yes. Do you want me to just
Yeah,
give a little
I just
background?
yeah, just so
They're
we know.
meeting today.
Yeah.
Sure. Oh, good.
Yeah.
So with our Office of Emergency Preparedness and Response contract through Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, there is a federal mandate to do a healthcare coalition, which is a coalition of our ESF 8 partners, which includes emergency response, hospitals, mental health, public health, other healthcare providers to come together to plan for emergency response as far as public health crisis. And that Regional Healthcare Coalition is, I believe,
It's 10 counties.
10
yeah.
counties that are coming together to plan accordingly. So it's broader than just Pitkin County and our local ESFA group, and looking at that county or regional kind of planning efforts.
Just so the board knows, there was no elected official appointed to that, so I got myself appointed to do that 10-county region. So thank you. I just wanted to interject that quickly into this.
And thank you, Patty, because I think it's been a little bit hard to recruit folks to join in on that regional effort, and I think having a Pitkin County voice there will be very important.
Thanks.
So thank you.
So as you said, that first meeting is actually coincidentally today. So do you have staff? Is Georgiana going?
So
Or is she there? Or?
we are currently hiring for our EPR coordinator, and actually did our last interviews yesterday. So once that person is on board, they will be representing public health at that meeting. Until that point, we're just getting feedback from the group, and Community Health Services is still acting as the entity representing us at that.
George,
level.
how did you, I didn't get noticed of that.
Oh, I had an email from
Oh.
Tracy Halt, who's facilitating it.
Oh, okay. Funny. Maybe I need to get myself into that loop. Good thing they have a meeting, they appoint me and have a meeting and don't invite me,
Don't
okay?
invite you, right.
So I would like to make a motion to approve this on second reading.
This is second reading, correct? Okay.
Do I have a second?
This is a public hearing. Anybody wishing to comment on this? I'll keep the public hearing open for the next items as well.
Okay, I'll second.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Great, thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let's see. Next is a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement with the U.S. Forest Service for the Pitkin County Sheriff's Office Annual Operating Plan.
Hi, Ron.
Good afternoon. Ron Ryan, Undersheriff. This is the confirmatory reading for our annual operating plan for law enforcement services with the Forest Service. We've been doing this for many years. It provides them a little more coverage in the rural parts of Pitkin County. And also provides us some benefits as well, such as $5,600, use of ATVs, boats, other things that may be important to us with some of the things that we're dealing with.
I have one correction, because I read it very carefully. Page 7 of 8, it should be George Newman as Pitkin County Chair, not Rachel.
It changed year to year.
I knew you were going to see if I'd
Or
catch
keep up
that.
with that.
Thanks for that catch, Patty.
And other than that, there are no changes from the first reading?
Correct.
Perfect. Thanks, Ron.
Any other questions? Anybody wishing to comment on this from the public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great, thanks, Ron.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Have a good day.
You too.
Next is a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement with the Colorado Department of Natural Resources for cooperative wildfire protection.
Hello, I'm Valerie McDonald. I'm the Pitkin County Emergency Manager. And just briefly, this IGA was created to clarify a gray area pertaining to who would pay for wildfire suppression on state wildland areas within the county. Colorado Parks and Wildlife will, in accordance with the provisions in the IGA, provide reimbursement to the county for certain costs the county incurs for suppression. The specific area this IGA addresses in Pitkin County is 329 acres up the frying pan, up above Meredith. And George, I wanted to clarify an answer to a question we gave you 3 weeks ago. You asked if this IGA applied to any other areas in Pitkin County. The correct answer is no, unless the state were to purchase more lands in the county during the term of this IGA, and then it would be covered under that.
Great, thank you.
This IGA will run through 2023. The max the state will pay out in any given year on a first-come, first-served basis is $89,000. Any questions?
No changes from first reading?
No.
Just one question. Well, the agreement specifies reimbursement to the county if we have to do suppression of wildfire. Is there a desire to do mitigation work, fuels reduction prior to a fire, or does it need that type of care?
I've talked to Basalt Fire. The land is in their district, and they're fully supportive of us adopting this IGA. And no, it's considered to be a defendable area. It's a flat meadow.
Okay.
So no, that would not be a priority area for us to go and try to mitigate.
Okay. Thank you.
This is a public hearing. Anybody wishing to comment on this item? Seeing none, bring it back to the board.
I will make a motion to approve, and then I would ask that when we finish this discussion, we allow Valerie some time to discuss wildfires briefly.
Great, thanks.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Thank you. Well, wildfire season's upon us. We had our first red flag warning day this Monday in Pickens County below 7,500 feet. Red flag warning means it's hot, dry, windy, fire condition. It's just ripe for fire starts. We've already had several small fire starts in the county, and even as I hear that come out of my mouth, I have to make a correction. All fires start small. Fires start small.
Good point.
So we've already had several fire starts. Everybody wants me to make a prediction, so I go to my local, regional, federal, state, and federal partners, and the state's predicting an average wildfire year, and then like an average person, I say, well, how many fires is that? And there's no answer to that, but it's still a lot of fires in an average wildfire year. We had a lot of late snow, so I would say we're looking decent right now, but I know the weather forecast for just the next 15 days is hot and dry. If you throw a wind event in there, our risk escalates. I just want to mention a few things. 80% of wildfires are human caused, so we want everyone to be careful out there with their campfires, their gas grills, their cigarettes, etc. You can pick up your wildfire action guide at the front desk in the sheriff's office, or you can go online. There's a wealth of preparedness information at pickenwildfire.com. There's a lot of great information in this brochure and online regarding how to create defensible space. And what I mean by that is just how to clear fuels from around your property to give firefighters the best chance to defend your home and to do it safely. There's information in here, there's a lot of checklists on how to create a family plan. What do you need to put in your 72-hour kit? If you get an evacuation order, go early. So again, firefighters can get in there. Have a communication plan with your family. There's a wealth of information, so I would direct you to this at the sheriff's office front counter or online, pickenwildfire.com. I'll stop there. And then Patty already hit on the the rivers. So enough said about that. I think the press has really partnered with us well this year. We got a week's notice from Twin Lakes that they were going to shut off diversions. I mean, that's radical. In the past, we might not have gotten that notice, and we would have gotten 600 additional CFS all at once. So they're working really well with us, and the press did a great job helping us get the word out. We're most concerned about an unsuspecting guest not knowing the inherent dangers more so than our experienced local community. Anybody have any questions?
I just
could
want to add
obviously
something.
go on and on.
But when we were talking earlier, and people should not be confused. We have really high water on this side. It doesn't mean that we have really high water on the fire side.
Mm-hmm.
So people see all the water come down the river, but it's just ironic that we have all this water here and we have all this dryness there. So people need to keep that in mind, that those two are both risks in themselves, and one does not negate the other.
So we have, as you said, Valerie, at least the short-term forecast for the next 15 days is hot and dry. So you'll be monitoring and working with the Sheriff's Department regarding the 4th of July celebrations and
Yes, our
sort of any sort of, and with the Forest Service, any sort of fire bans that may take effect, you'll be notified and we'll get that information.
We get that information. To answer your first question, we have our multi-jurisdictional incident management team monitoring the situation and working on response plans. I work with our local, regional, state, and federal partners. All of our agreements are in place. And what was the last one you asked?
Oh, I'm working with the Forest Service in case they were going to do some bans, or even and the BLM as well.
We have weekly conference calls. The first one is tomorrow with the BLM. They conduct, and it's what's happening in our entire region. There's probably 30 of us on the phone, and they're quick. They go quickly, but what are the concerns and who's going into restrictions? And I know locally we try to coordinate with the different districts and our different state and federal partners, so we're all doing this in unison. So that's ongoing.
Yeah, because one of the concerns I actually posed to Ron Ryan a few weeks ago with the IGA with the Forest Service was, do we have an IGA with the BLM? And my concern was now that all of our bike trails are open, the Crown gets heavily used. We've had past incidents with bonfires up there. Neighboring residents have been really concerned about that.
Yes, and the Sheriff's Office, there's definitely a coordinated response to that. They start doing checks on a lot of the wilderness areas this time of the year, the different campground areas and the more heavily populated tourism areas like you're talking about, not necessarily tourism, but heavily used by recreationalists.
Yeah, all right, great. And
it's on our radar big time.
Great, thank you. Greg?
I'm just wondering, maybe John can answer it also, but if you have a hazard issue, whether it's high water or extreme dryness, who puts up the signs to alert people, say in those particular areas, if they're entering an area that's really would be a dangerous place to have a fire, or entering the river where it's lethal, more lethal than they could assume? Who puts up is there a notice posted, and who does that?
It depends on whose jurisdiction it's in. It just would depend. I know the Forest Service will do that. The county has done that at campsites in the past. I know at some of the river put-ins, takeouts, there's signage going up. It would depend on whose jurisdiction it was.
So specifically, say Stein Park, I don't recall seeing there used to be a sign down there that announced the hazard for slaughterhouse, and I'm just wondering, is that whose sign is that?
That's in the city, isn't it? Your microphone, John. Nobody heard you.
Come on, John.
So users are doing it as well. Yeah.
Yes, the boaters, we have a really engaged boater community, and just as a side note, I mean, they were very excited about this high runoff, but I've talked to a lot of them who I know are completely dialed in, and they take it upon themselves to get the word out and put signs up on their own.
That's good to know they're doing
It's very good.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the bonuses of our local rafting community is they coordinate with each other for cleaning the rivers up at the beginning of the season, for using outhouses,
Right.
for portable potties, whatever you want to call them. And they also do it for rescues and training and mutual aid to themselves. And I think that's great that they work together, and that's huge, I think, as far as public safety.
Last thing to add to that was I remember the Forest Service used to have that thermometer that showed fire danger. Do we still have something like that here now that the Forest Service is gone?
There
from that
used to be
location?
one at the Forest Service on 7th Street.
There's all sorts of things going on. I know Ron Leach, fire chief in Carbondale, puts a little skinny stick with a red handkerchief on it. And it's very effective. As you drive up Missouri Heights, it's very effective. You live up there, you know what that means.
If you know what it means, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
no, they know what it means. So there's different things going on across the board.
That's really old school. I think that's great.
It works. It's one of the more effective.
Yeah.
Right there it works.
I
It may
just
not
see
work
Ron
other
doing that.
places, but he knows his people.
All right, well, thanks, Valerie. You'll keep us updated as we move forward next few weeks.
Definitely.
Thanks. Good to see
Thank you.
So let's see, our last consideration item here on second reading is an ordinance accepting a restrictive covenant for an agricultural building from Roaring Fork Metals LLC.
Hi, Mike Kramer with Picken County Planning Staff. I'm sitting in for Suzanne, who's out of the office today. And this is second reading of this ordinance. First reading was on May 24th, and the property is Roaring Fork Meadows LLC, 165 Hoagland Ranch Road. And you have before you an ordinance, and that ordinance is for the adoption of a restrictive covenant for an agricultural building. And as I understand, I wasn't here for first reading, but there are no changes from first reading to this, and we are recommending the board adopt the ordinance.
Any questions?
No changes from first read?
This is a public hearing. Anybody wishing to comment on this? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing at this point.
I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're going to move on to our land use action item. We only have one. This is the resolution granting the UGB residential GMQS allotment for a new lot.
Okay, Mike Kramer with Picken County Planning Staff again. And the address of this is 501 Buttermilk Road, and this is a subdivision application that staff received and will be reviewed by the Board of County Commissioners on July 12th, and that'll be a noticed public hearing. But what you have before you is an allocation of the growth management quota system's floor area for the new lot. The application, which the address is 501 Buttermilk, they're calling it Sky Beams Subdivision. And with this application, they requested 10,750 square feet of floor area. And you may remember on May 10th, staff forwarded the scoring of the P&Z meeting that was held. And in our land use code and our process, the P&Z scores growth management applications for not only new lots, but for additional floor area. This one is a new lot, and they requested a development right for it. So staff forwarded that scoring to the BOCC. The BOCC has an appeal and rescore time frame for that. Staff did not receive a request for rescore from a majority of the board, so we're moving forward with the allocation then today. So I'd just like to reiterate that the board will see this application. We are scheduled for, I said, July 12th, and the board's purview in that, and those two meetings, there'll be two readings on that, will be dedication, if approved, of the subdivision, and then rezoning of the properties into, and we'll have a full staff presentation, memo, and applicants here.
Yes, Rachel.
Thank you. Now, is this the one we talked about before that was previously part of Burlingame Ranch and sold by the housing office?
That's correct.
I would like to make sure that when we see it on July 12th, some of that history is brought forward as well as part of the memo. And you had said that the intentions were at the time it was sold to have a limited house size, but the plats were not recorded or something along those lines. I'm really wondering what the recourse is on that, whether we can sue the city for failure to record. I mean, we're all concerned with growth in this area. We spent a lot of time on energy code with 10,000 square foot homes yesterday. And, you know, if anything, the housing fund should have benefited if they wanted to sell 2 lots instead of 1. There was very intentional efforts. And so I really would like to know what the recourse is for that kind of failure to follow their own codes and the process of subdivision when it was taken off of the Burlingame Ranch. You know, I don't know, maybe we're not an injured party, maybe the public's is, I just don't know, and maybe too much time has elapsed, but it seemed like a really painful oversight for folks involved in affordable housing and for the consideration that was given at the time to try to respect the buttermilk community there and not create, you know, 2 lots there at the bottom. That would be much more visible from Highway 82 if the, you know, sizes that were originally contemplated were violated.
We'll have a full staff memo with that history, including the lawsuits that were filed and the results of those lawsuits too. So we'll have that information, and we can work with the attorney's office also prior to the hearing to address these concerns.
Okay, thank you very much.
So this is a resolution, but it's going to come back to us formally in the first and second reading. So we use a motion to move this resolution forward. I'm a little confused, John Ely.
I think it's because this is just for the GMQS.
Yeah.
It's just for the GMQS.
And then we do the land use approval.
So
next.
exactly, yeah. The process is that the P&Z scores the growth management application portion of this, and then the BOCC allocates that floor area through resolution, what you have before you. So with a vote, you would either approve or not approve this allocation. Now, on July 12th, you will hear the full subdivision application where you'll have discretion to approve or not approve that subdivision then. This is only for the floor area.
So if for some reason we did not approve the subdivision approval, how does that impact this GMQS?
The GMQS would not then be applicable.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thanks for clarifying that.
Well, then I would move to approve the resolution granting the UGB residential GMQS allocation.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Steve?
Following up on your point, George, that I see many times where applications come to us in a piecemeal basis. So in this case, they're going for the square footage allocation before they even have the subdivision approval. And I would much rather have a system where we get a package deal, package presentation with everything included in it. So I don't like this process of doing it this way. I never did really particularly like the GMQS system itself, and I just am filing a protest right now on that.
So is that something we should have a further discussion during a work session?
Wants to have another look at, the policies behind this. I think it'd be appropriate to schedule a work session to go back through the background, how we got there, the whys, and then at that point have the board give direction if there are policy changes that you would, or code changes that you'd like staff to develop for the board to consider. So if that's something that the board wants to do, I have not obviously spoken with Cindy about this. I need to look at staff capacity and when we could set that up, but that's certainly direction that, the board could give right now.
I think part of it too is the
there's
timing.
Cindy, right?
GMQS is twice a year, right? So there's a time frame for GMQS review and allocation of square footage. So that's probably why we're seeing this now, because that time frame and then the time frame for their application. I don't know what their motive may have been. They wanted to be sure they had the square footage before they went further, but I know there's a time frame involved for GMQS review. It's not like whenever an application comes up, you have to submit on a certain time frame. Is that right?
Well, that's correct. So there's in the growth management scoring system. So it's Chapter 6 of our land use code, and there's a deadline for competition for that. And if all the floor area isn't used up, then we'll hold a second round, and they are in January and July. And this one took a little bit long to process due to some issues with the subdivision, but just as far as process of the board knows, the land use code actually requires that the subdivision, GMQS, and any other requests that are being made all come in at once, and the applicant appropriately did that. And as you know, there are certain purviews that the Planning and Zoning Commission has, and there's certain purviews the Board of County Commissioners has. This is one of the situations where the Planning and Zoning Commission has approval authority over GMQS applications. It's actually quite limited in scope what the Planning and Zoning Commission can do, but this is one of those where they are the decision-making body for scoring applications. You all then are the allocating body for that, and you do that through a resolution that we have today. But I certainly sympathize too, Steve, because it does seem piecemeal to not have the full applicant subdivision application and then to dedicate 10,750 square feet of floor area without seeing it is I agree. The process is a little not as good as it could be.
So would the board like to have a future work session on this?
I think it's worth a discussion.
I'm good with that, and yes, I agree with that. And again, back to the history of this parcel, I'd really like to know, find out to the extent possible, who was responsible for that recordation that didn't happen. It's far enough back that I can't recall, but did the housing office, was it the housing office? Was it a hired land use planner? Was it, where did the disconnect happen that intention was not fulfilled?
We'll research that and provide that.
Yeah. So I will work with Cindy then to figure out a timeline when we can put that together. And then after that work session, of course, if the board does recommend development of code changes and such, those would need to be reviewed by the Planning Commission.
Or we could have a joint meeting with them afterwards.
Yeah.
So just so the board knows, I'm going to vote against this. It says granting the allotment for a new lot. The new lot doesn't even exist yet, and I just can't, I won't vote for it.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I'm going to vote for it, Steve, and I think that in terms of process, you need to move things forward so it's not perceived as a bias before we get the rest of the information at the next hearing.
All right, we need a motion.
I'll make a
I made the motion.
You did make a motion?
Yeah.
Oh, and we had a second?
Yes, you do.
So we can vote.
No, we can vote. Great. I'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay?
Okay, great. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Steve.
Mike. Good explanation. Thank
We're
you.
going to move on to open discussion. John?
I don't have any additional open discussion for you.
Any board members? Rachel?
Yeah, thinking about, as it transpired, our discussion with the Buttermilk parking lot, I think we should forward a request to John Kruger to add a brief discussion about 4th of July transit needs to the EOTC meeting tomorrow night. I don't know if there's an opportunity to quickly check with Dan Blankenship and find out what the additional cost of some shuttles to and from that Buttermilk parking lot would be, or what the adequacy is. But, both Patty and Steve are right. That lot does fill up. People do use it. And the buses are full coming in. And it just sets up a hazard situation of people trying to cross, if they even try to cross over to the sidewalk on the other side of Highway 82. So
Yeah, I think we need to note tomorrow's EOTC meeting is from 4 to 7.
Yeah.
And the agenda is very packed with a lot of lengthy discussions. So as much as it would be great to add one more thing, we all know how those EOTC meetings go.
Yeah.
So if there's time, but if not, we should certainly put it on the radar.
I think we should definitely at least introduce the issue.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, anybody else have anything?
On that same topic, I'm just thinking, any agreement we get into should be open enough to consider RAFTA's needs down the road if they have some greater need for that area. I'm not sure they do. It just occurred to me that it looks like this is becoming a more important, we're trying to make it a more
That
important
lot,
part
you
of our hub, that parking lot area.
And
in general.
it's my understanding that because, John Ely, because of the condemnation agreements that came out of that, it's very specific as to the uses of that lot.
Right.
The condemnation action set up specific uses.
Microphone.
The condemnation uses set up specific, condemnation action set up specific uses as a result of the county's participation in the acquisition of the property. However, given the passage of time now, we're free to revisit the appropriate uses of the property and establish, essentially the current scheme.
So we have a little more flexibility, which is a good thing.
Right. Something else, bringing back, Patty and I brought this. You brought it up originally, and I thought it was a great idea.
Oh, the
You're
bike
talking about
trail.
the connector. People
Yeah.
trying to get across 82 there. Cyclists who might want to park in that parking lot could gain access to the bike path without crossing the highway. And we asked if they could come up with what would it take to make about a 300-foot bike path from the parking lot across to the underpass at Tyhack Road. And I never heard anything about it again.
No, and I haven't heard anything over the years I've been bringing it up, and so we need to keep it on our...
We are having, ELTC has allocated dollars for design and engineering for the Buttermilk Underpass.
So maybe we could throw that in now.
That should be happening currently. RFPs have gone out for that. Don't know.
Sorry, I was typing something.
The RFPs for the Buttermilk Underpass, which ELTC has allocated dollars for design and engineering.
You know, I know we're working on that. I don't know if it's out on the street. I can take a look real quick.
Because we'd like to maybe try and having them look at the connection, because it's going to be a while till that underpass at Buttermilk is designed, funded, and built. In the interim, it would be great to have that public safety issue with that short bike path.
Yeah.
Even if it was just temporary until the underpass is there, if we needed to go that way.
I don't disagree, but I really want to know the cost, because
Sure. You
really get into, there's a pretty good grade there.
Your mic.
There's a pretty good grade there that drops off, and there is a intersection that you can walk your bike across. You know, it might take a few more minutes, but when a bike path is not simple. It has to have safety
Well, we need to look at that as part of
things
it.
like
We'd look
that.
at it.
But I mean,
Also, people are trying to get to Maroon from there, too. You can go to Tyhack. If you can get to Tyhack easily, you could park there and ride your bike up rather than driving all the way to Highlands and parking or using the ARC
And
lot.
the thing is the point is we're doing an underpass because we don't want people crossing at that intersection because it's dangerous with the signal. So that's why we're going to spend a lot of money and
I
time
don't
for the
disagree,
underpass.
Patty. I'm just saying I want to weigh the cost, because if it's going to be $300,000 to put in a temporary bike path that is not liable, that is, has the grades, is separated enough from the highway, I'd probably rather put the $300,000 towards our local match for the underpass, because it's not going to be fully funded by CDOT. So I'm just saying we have to weigh those connections.
That's why we're asking for it to be included in the engineering plans to see what that is.
I don't think
No, I don't think that was a
that's
request
not
to see.
possible. That
Even
was an
before
ELTC dollars specifically for the Buttermilk Underpass, so that's not possible.
We could talk to Open Space and Trails about using our own funds.
I thought
for
you guys
a
just said,
temporary
since
path.
we're doing the RFP for the engineering, we would look at it at the same time.
No, I didn't say that. I just said that we have an RFP going out, dollars specifically for the Buttermilk Underpass, which is also on the Intermountain Transportation Planning list as well.
It'd be nice to just have a sense of the practicality of
This
it.
is what I've been dealing with for others, just trying to have somebody look at it.
All we
So-
want to know is it even possible? Is it practical? And what would it cost?
All right, well,
That's something Brian could answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be simple. Okay, anything else on open discussion?
I think, Rachel, were you going to bring up congressional issues CCI issues? Or?
Well, I was going to do it. We didn't get to board reports yesterday because we had great discussions on some other items. And if we wanted to do full board reports, I wasn't sure if it was just me or all board reports.
I don't know.
Or we can
It's up
kick
to
that to
the
a
chair.
future meeting.
Well, so you had board report scheduled for yesterday, but it ran out of time, so the next time board reports would come in would be?
I believe they'd be a couple weeks out. We usually do them either every other meeting or
Well, it's up to the board pleasure. We have some time. I'd like to sort of keep this sort of moving along and not have really lengthy, in-depth board reports, but, if we can it's just some highlights, and succinct.
Okay. Well, trying to think back, the Western Interstate Region of NACO meeting in Sun River, Oregon, I thought was very productive, but discouraging in the updates on the presented Trump budget. That budget will probably change as it goes through Congress and Senate, but as it is, they zeroed out any federal money for new public land acquisitions. And so whether it's Forest Service, BLM, trying to identify and preserve sage habitat, sage grouse habitat, or critical winter range, they also have not included any funding for the Land and Water Conservation Fund. So although that was reauthorized last year, they are not sending any money to it. They're not appropriating any money in the current Trump budget. There was some discussion, rumors of discussion in D.C. about potentially making the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which is funded through offshore oil and gas leases, revenues, royalties, to become the funding source for PILT. And I think that that would be, very dangerous, because then how do you get back to the payment in lieu of counties? It just seemed to be a budget across the board that is very detrimental to counties, particularly in our role as healthcare provision for our community. There were no new resolutions there. Everything else was just kind of educational and things like that, but there were a number of DC updates. The other one that may be of some interest to our county is the Fema mapping requirements that continue to move forward. And they have expanded a lot of the boundaries. I know we have dealt with the one area down near Basalt, but that the question has become ever more pressing about federal flood insurance, and that more and more people are being identified within those areas. And the federal flood insurance program for people in coastlines or river areas or wherever has to be reauthorized. And they're not sure if the rates are going to triple, or whether they're going to reauthorize the program at all, or try to turn it over to the private market. So there's a lot of things in flux. Would be the best way to describe the different information that came forward. We did just have the Colorado Counties, Inc. Meeting last week. I was over in Keystone for that. Steve was there as well. And there was at least something that's bothersome to me that occurred, and I'm trying to still track it down. On Wednesday morning, the closing morning, one of our fellow county commissioners walked in, one of the declared candidates for governor's office, to the women's breakfast, to say, didn't use the terms governor's candidate, but here is so-and-so, he can answer some questions just to get to know you. And people started asking questions about courthouse funding for prosecutors, district attorneys, marijuana grows, and I had to kind of raise my hand and say, can we get back to the women's breakfast? And apparently the day before, Tuesday morning, during a 7 a.m. executive committee, that executive committee of CCI had discussed whether or not you could bring a guest who was a declared political candidate to meet folks without paying their own registration fee. For me, it's kind of like, hey, if they bought a booth, if they do something off-site, they buy an ad in the program, that's all fine. But it was very partisan feeling for an organization that's trying to be nonpartisan. And they, additionally, that same Tuesday, they discussed it in the morning at 7 a.m. We had the general business meeting of the organization at 4:30, and no one mentioned this policy determination. I don't know if a full decision was made or not with a motion, but they didn't update the rest of the membership, where you perhaps could have invited political candidates for statewide office from the other party to attend the dinner or the following day's meetings. And so I have requested information and just today received the audio file from the executive session, but I have not had time to look at that. I'm not sure there's been any true violation of IRS 501c3 statutes or Campaign Fair Practices Act, but I'm continuing to look into that. And at the very least, it has the appearance of turning CCI into an ever more partisan organization. So that's my bigger update from CCI. The rest of it was fairly informational, and educational. No new resolutions were passed or anything like that. At our district meeting, there's a lot of discussion about the AirNeb buds and short-term rentals, and I just received the guidelines that Grant County had produced to deal with that issue, and I forward those on to Suzanne Wolf and Cindy Hubin. It continues to be growing concern by a great number of people, mostly the neighbors, of what's going on in their areas. And Then we did have the retreat of the Colorado, commissioners and counties acting together group for a day and a half. John Peacock and Kara attended. I thought it was highly productive in trying to set what priorities would exist for next year, and I believe their transportation funding, healthcare, and housing. So not a big surprise there, but discussion about how to move forward with a more formalized due structure, how to recruit membership, how to delegate appropriately so we can respond in a rapid sequence, because things move so quickly when you're at the legislative session. So that would be my brief update. And there's a QQ meeting next Thursday, the 29th in Granby, if anyone would like to attend a water meeting.
Thanks, Rachel. Patty?
I'll just remind real quick, Northwest COG and the Economic Development District. The Economic Development District specifically, we're moving forward with the, revising the SEDS, which is the master plan. Even though we're not sure we're going to have any funding for economic development districts in the future, that whole department at the federal level may be gone. But we decided we needed to be prepared to go one way or the other, so we're moving forward with just updating it and bringing in any new issues from communities. I need to get in touch with Cindy Hubin, because she's the one who's really been involved in that SEDS plan in the past. So that was the key thing there. As far as Northwest COG, under the new executive director, John Stabney, it's been great. He's really taking a different approach. He's more able to get in front of other organizations. He's more comfortable at that level than Liz was. So it's a good new change, and I'm really excited about it. Again, the next meeting will be here, and I'll make sure you guys all know about that. And Steve, I'll let you know I won't be attending the one in Granby. The other one is, Greg, if you would like to go to the workforce meeting, it's the face-to-face lunch. It is Wednesday. What's that Wednesday? And it's in. I'll send you the info, and I let them know that you might be.
I saw a note on it, but please send that.
Yeah, I'll send it over to you. It's going to be in Edwards, and it's a great opportunity. It'd be great if you can attend. I'm definitely going to be going to that. So, and I think for me right now, that's all.
Okay, let's see. I haven't got the order in here, but
that's why I'm winging it.
Just sort of pipe up. Steve?
Following up on the Northwest COG issue, on today's AAA meeting of the Regional Advisory Council, we were talking about having Aaron Fisher's going to make a presentation at the Granby meeting about trying to get the Alpine Area Agency on Aging more involved with the counties and make sure the counties know what services are available. And so we're talking about possibly doing at least putting out the offer to counties to go and do a bigger presentation to the different counties in Northwest COG about what the AAA does and the services that are available, just to make it so everybody is on the same page, knowing what's out there.
And for the public, the AAA is not auto coverage.
No, AAA, there are AAAs all across the whole United States, and ours actually has 4 A's. It's Alpine Area Agency on Aging, which is a part of Northwest COG.
Thank you.
In the CC4CA, Colorado Communities for Climate Action, the only thing I would report right now is that on July 20th, we are going to have a retreat which will be held in Vail. So I will be there. I think probably Cindy Hubin would be there. I think it would be appropriate if any of the rest of you wanted to go to that.
When is that?
It's July 20th in Vail. It's just a one-day thing. And a lot of what we would be doing then is similar to what we were doing at the communities and the commissioners and counties acting together, just looking at priorities for next year and what things we want to carry forward for for the next legislation.
Attend that. I'll be at NACO.
I'd like to.
So that's all I have.
Okay, thanks. Let's see. Greg.
If I can elaborate just briefly on my note, I mentioned it yesterday from Mark Fuller regarding the funding for the aquatic nuisance species at Rudai. The program's gone very well. we're expecting to go to the end of the season, there's going to be about a $20,000 shortfall, mainly for two reasons. One is the cost of hiring the rangers has gone from 17 an hour to 22 to get people who are qualified to do the job. And then secondly, the Forest Service funding went from 15,000 dropped to 6,000. And then the
Perfect cost went up.
Parks and Wildlife had offered 10,000, that dropped to zero. He had an effort to raise money from landowners in the frying pan, people who had ponds and had an interest in it, and that came to naught. So we can get, right now we can get about to September 15th, but we need to get to October 15th, and that's about an extra 18 to 20,000. Our board has discussed ways of raising that money, and one alternative that I brought up is that we reach out to some of the other groups that might be interested, including Roaring Fork Conservancy and Wilderness Workshop and even ACES and others who might take an interest in helping with this, because as RWAPA evolves, we're still trying to figure out how it's going to look and what it's going to look like when Mark Fuller retires in 18 months or 2 years. And so there probably is some interest. We could probably raise some matching funds. We'll go back to the municipalities as well. So I don't know if we're going to have time to get back to this board to ask for supplemental funding, but it may happen. I'm serving notice.
When's the annual Riverfest? Do you know, Rachel?
I don't have it on my
Fork
calendar, but it's
Conservancy?
coming up fairly soon.
I mean, that may be an opportunity to tap into and see if they would be willing to donate a portion of those.
Proceeds, or have
Yeah.
a dunk booth with county
Something like that.
There you go.
Are you offering yourself for
If
that?
it's the right day of the week, I can do that.
We proposed the formation of a Friends of Root Eye. People up there. There's some really gung-ho people who use the reservoir a lot, and maybe they'll see the value in keeping the
They should
nuisance
put a
species
donation box up there.
Just to tag on, because Greg brought that up yesterday, and George, you weren't here, the end of this month is the deadline to submit potential Colorado County Inc.'s legislative agenda items, and we suggested that we do some sort of invasive species boat tag separate from Colorado Parks and Wildlife Initiative, so that it doesn't get tangled up in raising hunting fees.
It doesn't get tangled up in their budget. It's a supplement to.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have a quick update just on RAFTA? I just know, the only thing I read was that I think RAFTA allocated out the line item about $100,000 for the next 3 to 5 years for WeCycle. And we're continuing to see how RAFTA may incorporate WeCycle into the program, and that will be part of the Parsons transportation study.
Yeah, it's great. It's I think that the confidence in Myrta and WeCycle is really high among the group, and that she's working on a possible transportation mobility solution that could go beyond bicycles and beyond that form of bicycle at some point. It just seems like it's a good time to get behind her, and everyone agreed. And I didn't realize this, but she didn't have an office, and so they're kind of bouncing from, pop-up
Whose
space.
house to whose house?
Yeah, exactly. So now they're going to have a budget for a few years, so they can really put some effort into formalizing it, I think. The other thing that came up was with the RAFTA, it's possible that want to create a intern ranger types, the way Open Space has, for just patrolling, informally patrolling the corridor, the rail corridor. That we had a report on all the various intrusions and things on it, and there weren't very many that were of substance or very deeply concerning. Nothing really new. But the idea is that to have people with eyes on the ground who could help contact somebody who's polluting, whether it's ditch debris or whatever. A utility had dug a trench through the right-of-way, and we didn't catch it for 4 or 5 days. If we had a few interns, it might be helpful to just be a little bit more aware of what's going on. So that came up as well.
Just to tag on to that, I had feedback from a member of the public not long ago that they were concerned that if RAFTA was granting too many covenants or ability to cross, that it eventually could lose its rail banked status. I'm sure RAFT is well aware of that and its attorneys, but I just wanted to mention that as it had been passed along to me.
Right, working on that.
Yeah. Okay, I think with that, we're done for the day. One last thing, we all know how much John Peacock likes his beer. Well, he's going to go over the pond to get a different type of pint of beer starting tomorrow.
Beer.
So
Real ale.
Tomorrow.
Real ale.
A little
So
Guinness
have a great
for you?
trip.
Thank you very much. And I did shoot you all an email, but just a reminder, I will be out starting tomorrow till the following. I think I should be back in country on Friday, all flights going as they're supposed to. In my absence, Phyllis is acting county manager, but Phyllis will also be out starting Tuesday. So the order of succession then goes to Rich Engelhardt, who will be at your next meeting.
So be careful and be safe over there.
Thank you.
Because there's a lot going on over there in London today.
Yeah, there
even.
is. Yeah.
George, that reminds me of one other thing, just to check in on schedules. Next Thursday, June 22nd, is the Schultz Building Open House.
Your mic.
See, I had to turn the right way. The Schultz Building Open House, celebrating 25 years of that, and I know I'm going to be over at the Gunnison Water Conference, and so I'm wondering, do we have any BOCC members that are going to be able to make that meeting?
What
I've
time
been
is it?
planning on it. Yeah.
Steve is going, I just
time is
saw it again. I don't have it with me because I'm not going.
It is 11 to 1. And George, I know they're going to be reaching out to you first as chair to see if you wanted to say a few words or any board members. that
That's
might be
next
able to-
Tuesday?
Next Thursday, the
Thursday.
22nd.
Oh, next Thursday, okay.
Yeah.
And that's my workforce meeting in Eagle.
Yeah, so I will be gone. Patty will be gone.
Edwards.
So Steve, you'll be there.
Yeah, I'm planning on going.
I'll put it on my calendar also.
So I think Mitzi is going to be reaching out to you, George, if you're available. Otherwise, we'll keep rolling through who's going to be there to see if you'd be willing to say a few words.
All right, I'll have to look at my calendar.
What time is that again?
11 till 1.
Yeah, sounds like lunch. Great, thanks. I'm sorry, I
Kind of
just
double
realized
check
that.
No, I'm
that
glad you
time
brought
for
that
you
up.
guys.
Okay.
So would you like a motion to adjourn, since I'm so good at motions over here today?
Yeah, please.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, Grassroots, thanks, we're done for the day. EOTC tomorrow at 4 o'clock,
Snowmass Village.
Snowmass Village.
And count on traffic leaving town.
All right, yeah. It's always good to get a taste of that.